I don't want no oil spoiling my shoreline. I like fish much better than crud. I like birds and things creeping and crawling. Won't trade no more oil for blood. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. I don't want them nukes run by them kooks who think radioactivity is fun. No more three-headed frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that nuclear power's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. No nukes! Good morning, Toledo. And good afternoon, Columbus. Good evening, Bowling Green, and hello to everyone on the internet, wherever and whenever you are. My name is Joe DeMare, and I am here with my wonderful co-host,
Rebecca Wood.
Yes, and together Rebecca and I are going to spin yet another hour of wonderful radio called For a Green Future. For a Green Future is a show where we talk about ecology and the environment. And we talk about them in the ways that they affect you, your wealth, your health, your happiness, the wealth and health and happiness of your friends and your family and your co-workers, and the bees and the wasps and the beetles and all those pollinators and all the flowers that they pollinate and all the people that eat stuff that require pollinators to make fruit and so forth, because, like it or not, all of us are wrapped up on this wonderful little planet called Earth. And
I want my own Earth. I'm tired of you people.
Well, I could see wanting that, but
Yeah.
the one we've got is definitely, hold on to what you've got, all right? If somebody offers you another planet, you can consider that, but until that happens, let's try to protect this one.
Keep hoping.
Yes. And so we're going to chat for just another 10 minutes or so here, and please feel free to call in 877-909-1007. That's 877-909-1007 with any kind of ecological or environmental observation or question you've got. Then we have a couple guests, very nice, inspiring interview with some people down there in Richland County, Ohio, because they are bucking the trend of, we've got all these conservative county commissioners that are outlawing wind and solar in Ohio. They have decided to do a citizens referendum to overturn one of these laws that makes it illegal to get solar or wind power in Ohio.
Good for them.
Yeah, and it's going pretty well. It's a nice interview, and as we say, that's going to be about quarter after. Then we hear from our advertisers and patrons, to whom we are eternally grateful. And then, Rebecca, it will be your turn at the mic, and I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce what you're going to talk about. What is that exactly?
Kyshtym. I'm going to talk about the Kyshtym nuclear accident. This is your cue to say, God bless you.
God bless us all. Yes, because, that was a bad one. So, All right, great. Then, of course, it's ecological news from around the world. And we've got we've got kind of a fun story there. And it's kind of just sort of a, you'll just have to wait and hear it after the bottom of the hour. So that's it. That's our show. And so this morning, as I was getting ready to come in, I saw something on Facebook that just last minute I just actually have to comment on, and that is that this group down in Australia, it's called Empowerment Alliance, and they made this little chart, this little graph that had, it listed all these different energy sources like natural gas, nuclear, coal, And according to their chart, which is really big and nice and clear, it had very pretty colors. Wind and solar are the least environmentally friendly energy sources in the world. And oddly enough, coincidentally, the fact that this gas organization, pro natural gas organization, put natural gas at the top as the cleanest.
That's an odd coincidence.
Yeah, just the. And it's just a reminder that these folks that are trying to keep us on fossil, that are trying to block the necessary transition to a carbon-free future, literally are now to the point where they're just lying about everything. They're just, instead of trying to tailor it and say a little bit of mistruth here, a little bit of misinformation there, now they're just going, fossil fuels are clean, wind and solar are dirty. They've crossed the line, and so I take it as a good sign. It's a sign of desperation because they know that the world is making the shift. We are transitioning to a carbon-free future. The only question is, will we do it fast enough to survive? And the answer is not yet. It is accelerating. The pace is accelerating, but it's not fast enough yet. We're still heading towards doom. But that shouldn't stop us from enjoying the here and now, enjoying the nature as nature is at this moment. And that was the other thing I wanted to talk about this morning was yesterday morning I had a very nice time. The Wood County Park District offered this kayaking trip on the mighty Maumee River. Ooh. And we actually went, and it was a 5-mile kayaking voyage. And I was a little nervous because this was literally only the second time I've been in a kayak. About a month ago, they had a beginner's course, an introductory thing that show you how to use kayaks. And so I learned the basics and how to rescue somebody whose kayak has sunk. It was very nice, but it was in a still pond in Perrysburg. And so now I'm here out on the mighty Maumee River with a current and wind and everything. And it actually went very well. I was quite pleased to see that 5 miles of kayaking was relatively easy. I'm a canoeist. I've been canoeing since I was 11 years old, and so I was really kind of amazed at how little effort it took to kayak for 5 miles. So it was really kind of a big thing. And we saw some really cool stuff. We saw a mature bald eagle flew literally right in front of us and kind of swooped down and landed on a branch in front of us and sort of made this dramatic pause just before it landed on the branch, where its wings were fully extended and its tail was down, and it was just like, boom, bald eagle. And then we saw an immature bald eagle, which is, all black and gray. Saw some freshwater mussels, which shocked me because these are the big native mussels, and they usually require very clean water. And so I was kind of surprised to see them in the Maumee, which those of us who are familiar with the Maumee River, clean is not usually an adjective
My uncle once nicknamed it the Smarmy River.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it gets a lot of agricultural runoff, and a lot of storm drains from all the communities along it just go right into it. So usually it's pretty muddy, but apparently it's clean enough for some freshwater mussels. We found this one big shell that was empty, might have been eaten by a raccoon, and I actually found one on the edge of the river that was actually feeding. It was open and you could see the water coming in and out of it. It was cool. Another cool thing we saw on the canoe trip or the kayaking trip was we found some pawpaw trees.
Ooh.
Yeah, just wild native pawpaw trees growing right out over the river. And one of the people on the trip was sort of a pawpaw expert, so he just launched into this lecture on pawpaws, which was really fun. They're the native fruit, the one native fruit tree in North America. And something he told me I didn't know before was that they actually evolved along with the megafauna. So
oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah. So the like the giant sloth and the giant armadillo. Remember those from your natural history books. Cave bears. So those kinds of critters, the pawpaws depended on those to distribute its seeds. Animals that were big enough to eat the entire pawpaw and those great big oval seeds that they have. Since all those megafauna are gone, all the pawpaw populations have sort of isolated. They've become genetically isolated. They're like genetic islands.
I heard they were like a big source of a food source in the Appalachians for the early settlers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and they're pretty good. I like them, but what has happened is you get a huge variation now in the quality of the pawpaw.
Wow.
So you can have pawpaws from one area that are just like absolutely delicious, sort of like part mango, part watermelon, part other sweet like grape. But then you get other pawpaws that are just sort of like slime.
Oh my.
So if you've had a pawpaw and didn't like it, don't give up on pawpaws, because there may be another stand that does do pawpaws that are absolutely delicious. But those, but it was overall, it was a very pleasant event. And for those of you who've been listening to me talking about my kayaking experiences, the Wood County Park District does have another intro to kayaking and canoeing called Paddle the Pond at WW Night in Perrysburg. That's on August 25th. You can sign up for that. And that just reminded me that the Wood County Park District has all kinds of fun stuff. They have yoga in the parks. They have a book club. Carter Historic Farms, which is a farm that was sort of a pre-industrial farm. They're doing things on raising wool-bearing, fiber-bearing animals like rabbits and sheep right now. They have archery, of course, and it's all building up to the big native plant sale in the fall. That's going to be September 13th. So stuff to look forward to. And something else to look forward to is, if you're an environmentalist, if you're an ecologist, is happening down there in Richland County, which, as we've been reporting, for some reason, all these conservative Republicans are opposed to wind and solar power. Okay, not your rank and file Republican. Actually, people I talked to, like at the county fair when I was talking to just your basic Republican person who's at the fair, they all support wind and solar, especially for people to be able to do those things on their own land.
Heck yeah.
Because they have this, the rank and file conservative has this idea of something called property rights. But what's happened is the leadership of the Republicans in Ohio and nationally have just gone all anti-renewable energy. And that has resulted in Ohio with county commissioners outlawing wind and solar outright in a lot of counties. And that happened down in Richland County this past, in July. They passed a law outlawing wind and solar. But the difference is this time, a whole bunch of people in Richland County were up in arms about it and said, what are you doing outlawing this? And so they have started a petition drive in order to try to put this on the ballot in November and let the people of Richland County vote whether they want to do that or not. And so let's go to that interview now. Hello, and welcome to For a Green Future. Could you please just give us your names and who you're with? We'll start with Brian.
Hey, my name is Brian McPeek. I'm the business manager, financial secretary of IBW Local 688 in Mansfield, Ohio.
I'm Christina O'Million. I am the treasurer for the Richland County Citizens for Property Rights and Job Development.
Okay, thank you both for joining. And Christina, that organization got started specifically for this petition drive. Is that correct?
Correct. We created the political action committee for this petition drive.
All right. Well, let's do a little background first. So what is the situation in Richland County in regards to solar and wind development right now? Brian?
So, yeah, our county commissioners, they put a ban in 11 of 18 townships in Richland County. So 7 are still open, but 11 of the 18 were banned. Solar or
So just any significantly large wind or
Anything
solar.
larger than 50 megawatts would be banned with this legislation.
Mm-hmm. And they say that they were doing this in response to the requests by the trustees of the townships.
Yeah, so their reasoning behind it was they said the township trustees were requesting this to be done. That was their reasoning.
Okay, well, we're allowed to put reasoning in air quotes here.
Right. So, the only people that have the authority to do it are the county commissioners, and they reached out to the township trustees and said, "We want you to make this decision, and we are putting a deadline on it. I think it was about 2.5 months they gave them to make the call." And many of the trustees said that they didn't know what to do. They just sent the stuff back. And I had a lot of, people in townships around here reach out to me, and because I, was a pretty big, trying to get out to all the trustees and give them all the information I could give them. And I had a lot reach out and say, we didn't even know that they were doing this. My township banned it, and I didn't even know about it. So, the only recourse is to put it on the ballot to vote with enough signatures. So,
okay, so these bans have been going into place in a lot of the counties surrounding Ohio. Yours is the first that I know of that has had a reaction, that's had citizens getting together to get petitions to try to reverse this ban. What prompted you folks to act? What triggered your decisions to go?
Right away when the commissioners made the vote, we had some just local folks that asked, "What can we do?" Folks, kind of like Brian mentioned, just weren't aware that this was happening, and right away we had few dozen folks that came out within the first day or two and said, what can we do? What can we do? And again, like Brian said, since the ballot initiative was our only recourse, that's just what prompted it. We just decided we had to do it. We had to try to see what we could do to get it done.
So both economically and environmentally, banning wind and solar is a bad decision. Would you agree, or do you want to expand on that at all?
I think, in my opinion, it is a bad decision. I think it's good for development. It brings people to Richland County, and we have a lot of industry that's left our county over the years. I mean, we were hit very hard by NAFTA and some of the businesses pulling out. I mean, we were hit really hard. My big thing, though, I'm not necessarily wanting to overturn what they did. I want the citizens to be able to make that decision for themselves, people that live here, instead of 3 guys that sit in an office downtown. I mean, that's been my motivation. And that's kind of, the sentiment that I heard from the people that came to me, whether we want to do it or not, we at least want the citizens to decide. And then even at that point, you get to make that call if a project's right for the county at every time a project tries to come to the county. I mean, it's not like we're saying it's open for whatever you want to build. We still get to look at every single project that would come through here and approve or deny.
If you folks do succeed and it goes on the ballot, I think history teaches us that you would be up against a whole lot of very false misinformation in the actual campaign. Claims of things like windmills causing cancer and solar panels poisoning the farmland that they're on forever. If you get past the petition stage and actually have a campaign, are you prepared to deal with that just sort of straight up false information?
I think, we've kind of addressed this in other counties a lot. And it's tough. And I think one of the things we have going for us here in Richland County is there isn't a developer here. There isn't somebody that's trying to build a project. So it's kind of off the radar to these. What happens a lot of times when a project comes to town, somebody pays a bunch of money to get people into the counties, into the townships, and just lie and get people mad and angry and try to kill it before it's there. Well, I think one of the advantages that we have is we're here first. We can get the truth out first. And, here's the benefits. I mean, in my opinion, there's very, very few, if any, cons. And I just, getting people educated before they hear the lies is very helpful. I mean, I don't remember who said it now, but it's easier to get the truth out to somebody first than it is to convince them that they've been lied to I think that's an advantage that we're going to have going into this campaign, in my opinion.
So how's it going? We're doing this interview on Wednesday. Petitions are due Friday. I know you folks had a booth at the fair there at Richland County Fair. What's the reaction? Are people signing? How's it going?
People are signing. We're getting lots of folks across the aisle, so to speak. It's a bipartisan issue. We talk a lot to folks about property rights. Just the idea of, a farmer with a lot of acreage being able to decide what they do with that property. So that was a lot of the conversations that we had out at the fair. We have door knockers, door to door folks. We've gone to local events, catching folks as they're going in. There's some local concerts and things that we've been able to canvass. Lots of dozens of volunteers that we've got out doing the work, and we've got another group of volunteers this week then that we are collecting the petitions and reviewing them before we get them all organized to turn in.
And so this pretty much is a volunteer effort, right? You mentioned
Yes.
that there's nobody's like bankrolling this. So
no, we're all getting paid the big bucks. A free cup of coffee, I guess, is about all I'm getting out of it today.
You mentioned there's some economic benefits. You're a largely rural county there, Richland. Wind and solar, haven't they been like a boon to, haven't they saved a lot of family farms around the country in places where they do allow it to develop?
Yeah, so I've kind of listened to the stories of landowners, and all the counties surrounding Richland just about have had either a project come to town that they want to do or a project approved that we're working on. And over I hear the stories of the landowners who, that this is our farm. My kids don't want to farm it. I don't want to lease it out to somebody that I don't know to do whatever they want with it. And I want to keep the land in the family. This keeps the land in the family and allows them to make an income from it and save the land. I mean, most of them aren't leasing their entire property, but you know what I mean? It's a significant income for these landowners, and they're able to, afford to pay for the land that they've, worked for generations. I mean, that's a huge plus. And it's when you hear them talk about it, the people who it's their land and they want to, they get emotional that they get to save their land this way. And that they, the fact that they got to beg to be allowed to do it is what is kind of mind blowing to me. You don't have to do this for other forms of energy. IBW, we represent all forms of energy workers, and solar and wind are the only ones where you have to go and beg to be allowed to let your land be used for solar or wind or energy development. I mean, coal plants, you don't have to do that. Gas plants, you don't have to do that. The pipelines that run through, you're not doing that. I mean, it's just mind blowing to me that we have to do this at all.
And these projects, when they do go in, they provide a lot of benefit for things like local school districts and helping pay for municipalities for helping general expenses.
Yeah, when they use the pilot program, the payment in lieu of taxes, that's huge for the local school in particular. They get the lion's share of that. The townships get a portion of that. The first responders, most of the time, it's going to mental health services and different things like that. But on top of it, once they do that, they have a prevailing wage requirement. They have to pay the workers a good living wage, which brings more taxes in. They have an apprenticeship standard. So, we're training up the next generation because of these jobs. We're building 2 projects right now, and my membership has grown 30% since we started building these, just because we need people, and we're, bringing local people. We're giving them a career with a good retirement, good pension, and a good insurance and a skill that they can use for the rest of their life. I mean, it's life-changing to a community for these projects. It really is.
All right, great. Well, that's just about all we have time for, but I'd like to ask each of you if there's anything you'd like to add.
I think the big thing is just, we want to get out there, get these signatures, get it on the ballot, and educate people and let them make their own decision.
All right. Well, good luck.
All right. And thank you so much for making the decision to listen to our show and interviews like that one. Just to let you know a little bit of reporting, I texted them, I texted Brian and Christina last night and asked, how did it go? Because the deadline has passed now. And their response is that they're still counting, but they passed the number required. So they know they've gathered more than enough signatures to get on the ballot. The question is, will those signatures stand? Will there be usually the Republicans will challenge signatures to try to knock things off the ballot, so they've gathered enough. The question is, have they gathered more than enough, and will that actually succeed? It looks good. It looks like they probably will be on the ballot in the fall in Richland County, and so we'll be watching that, see how that turns out, because this could be the beginning of a reversal of this, because what's happened is that oil and gas interests have just sneakily gone into all these counties and made big donations to the county commissioners, and then these laws get passed, and actually usually most of the people in the county have no idea this even came up, and before they know it, their county has outlawed wind and solar power. So we'll see what happens there. And thanks so much again for listening, and thank you so much to our advertisers and patrons. For a Green Future is brought to you by the Wood County Park District. Imagine a place where nature meets adventure, where you can climb, paddle, fish, and explore. That place, it's right here in Wood County. The Wood County Park District is here to protect, preserve, and inspire. We conserve natural and cultural treasures so you can enjoy the outdoors like never before. By maintaining green spaces, providing fun programs, restoring wildlife habitats, and leading outdoor adventures. Want to connect with nature? Try your hand at archery, bouldering, geocaching, paddling, rappelling, and more. Whether you're seeking experience or a peaceful retreat, our parks are open every day from 8 a.m. to 30 minutes past sunset all year round. Come, explore, get outside, experience nature. Your parks, your adventures waiting for you. Find us online at wcparks.org or follow on Instagram, Facebook, or X, or call 419-353-1897. That's 419-353-1897. The Wood County Park District, preserving nature, creating adventure, and inspiring a greener future. And, of course, we also want to thank our patrons. Our patrons are wonderful people who've gone to patreon.com. There they searched for our Patreon page, which is For a Green Future. And there they found we have different levels of membership. They picked a level that matched their budget. And you could also set your own level. If you don't have one of the levels that we've got, you want to give a different amount. Like if you wanted to give $37.50 a month, you can put that in there. And then every month, a little bit comes out of their account, comes over to us, and that's how we can keep this wonderful show on the air. And that brings us to Rebecca's wonderful portion of our wonderful show. I feel like Lawrence Welk today. I keep saying wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So
I used to have a dress that was like what those. I could maybe dig it out one of these times.
oh, what are
It's like
the
blue polyester. It's great.
yeah? What are those sort of like curtain dresses?
Right,
So
yeah.
all right, go ahead, Rebecca. You got the mic.
Okie dokie. Okay, well, as number 2 in our, this may be the final episode of our series of obscure nuclear accidents, or little known nuclear. Joe, of course, knows about all of them. I mentioned it, something I've never heard of. He's like, oh yeah, that was a bad one.
It was, yeah. It's kind of an obsession with me, as you may know. But
There
go
we
on.
go. Yeah, but yeah. So there was we're doing something called Kyshtym, the nuclear accident today, and this is a thing that happened in 1957 at the Mayak nuclear facility near the town of Kyshtym in Russia on the eastern slopes of the Urals, which I think the Urals pretty much run through the middle of Russia. Is that or the Soviet Union? I don't know. But yeah, what happened was there was a chemical explosion in a radioactive storage tank, which is never good. And it released a lot of radioactive material into the environment, forming something which is now known as the East Urals radioactive trace, and remains contaminated to this day. Apparently, there are signs saying, "Go full speed, don't slow down, don't get out of your car here."
Yeah, and roll up your windows.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's 20,000 square kilometers, which is 9,000 square miles. It got contaminated, and several villages had to be evacuated and demolished. And there are long-time effects, according to studies, that are still going on people and ecosystems. So it's apparently one of the most significant disasters, nuclear disasters in history, and it was kept secret for decades. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, they were processing plutonium there, and it took them, in 1989, it was finally acknowledged. So that's really about 30 years that they were pretending it hadn't happened, or pretending, oh no, it was just like, some radiation floated there from a nuclear test somewhere or something. No, that isn't. But people realized, okay, no, it's too much for the contamination for that to have happened. Quote, probably hundreds, unquote, died from the effects of radioactivity, according to Britannica. And it's a level 6 disaster on the international, on the International Atomic Nuclear and Radiological Event Scale. And apparently the maximum is 7, which I didn't know. If you remember last week, we talked about wind scale. That was a 5, so this was a bit worse than wind scale. And this is according to the International Nuclear Atomic Energy Agency. And only Chernobyl and Fukushima were classified as a 7, which is the highest. So this was pretty bad. It was also built in the 1940s, like wind scale, as part of the arms race. Everybody's trying to get nuclear energy and nuclear weapons and everything. And also goes by the name Chelyabinsk 65 and Ozersk. And they were apparently, it was just dirty as all get out even before the explosion, because they were using local lakes both for water and waste disposal. So not a good place to go swimming, apparently.
Yeah.
So really, I mean, I'm interested in this stuff because the first nuclear disaster I ever heard about in my life was 3 Mile Island. I remember that in the 1970s. Everybody was making like sort of really dark jokes about it and was really freaked out by it. And I was not aware that any major nuclear accidents had happened before that. But no, right? Almost from the very beginning, things have been going badly wrong.
Yes. Fidgeting is inherently dangerous and dirty, and
Yep.
And this actually, it segues perfectly into our first ecological news story.
We kind of wish it didn't.
Yeah. But this has been a very bad week for the nuclear industry. It's just the nuclear plants are crashing like one after another.
Are they?
Yeah, there was a in Virginia, the Surrey nuclear power plant crashed, and Surrey is kind of unique, kind of special in the history of nuclear plants in the U.S. because a few years back they had a coolant pipe explode and it literally boiled 4 nuclear plant workers alive.
Oh, that's very bad.
It was very bad.
Oh,
It
that's
took
very
'em-
unpleasant.
Took them 3 days to die. It was horrible. But
That's bad.
But they shut down. They had
Poor people.
They had a crash this past week, as did our very own local nuclear plant, Davis-Besse.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, Davis-Besse had a little coolant leak,
Oopsie doodle.
and they are still shut down. It's been almost a week now.
But
And
remember, nuclear plants are much more reliable than wind and solar.
that's what they say.
They
of
only
course.
shut down every 5 minutes.
Right. And we got 2 more examples. The Turkey Point nuclear plant also had a crash this week. And remember, every time one of these plants goes down, it takes a gigawatt of power, unimaginable amount of energy off the grid in like a fraction of a second. And the whole grid has to scramble to get that power back up again. Or, as we saw in New Orleans back in the spring and in South Korea last year, the entire grid can literally collapse. The local grid can just go down, and that can take days to bring back up again, because you don't want your grid to crash because of a lack of energy, a lack of power. But the last one, and this if you're counting, this is the 4th, and this is actually 4 nuclear power plants that all went down at the same time in France. And this one you may have actually heard, because our late night comedians actually grabbed onto this one because it's so ridiculous. In France, the Gravelines nuclear plants, and this is 4 plants out of the 6 plants in that complex, were shut down by jellyfish.
Oopsie.
Yes, the
Jellyfish.
Jellyfish, yes.
There ain't much to jellyfish. There must have been a lot of jellyfish.
There were a lot of jellyfish. They're the flimsiest creatures on Earth, and they flung themselves into the cooling intake pipes. And according to the news reports, the cooling intake pipes were packed solid with jellyfish.
How?
And so that's 4 gigawatts of power that just crashed all at once.
Is this like a global warming thing that suddenly they're all flocking to this point because they're normal? I don't know.
Well, it is. It is
Yeah,
a global warming thing because what happens is the water gets warmer. The water
Right.
along the coast of France gets warmer, and that promotes jellyfish growth.
And they're all hot diggity, let's breed.
Yes, and exactly, and the discharge from the nuclear plants into the local water makes that water even warmer than the global warming does. And
Oh,
so,
boy, yeah.
so it's like perfect jellyfish generation, and that's what led to these 4 out of 6 plants. The other 2 plants, the only reason they didn't crash was because they were already down for like for refueling and maintenance and
Okay.
stuff. So this whole idea that nuke plants are just these 24/7 always on. Here's 4 examples this week that shows that's fantasy. Next story, and we're coming back here to Ohio. Columbus Dispatch, August 11th, and the title is Ohio Children at Risk of Lead Exposure. State lawmakers cut funding for programs to help. And those of you who remember our interview with, the press conference we managed to attend at the Governor's Fish Day, and we got a question in there to Governor DeWine asking him about, what are you going to do now that you have a federal government that is like denying environmental reality? And he said, one of the things he said was, this doesn't change any of our priorities here in Ohio. We're going to continue to do like lead abatement and, listed a bunch of other stuff. And no, sorry, Governor, the legislature cut the lead abatement program in Ohio from $7.5 million down to $250,000. So, almost nothing now compared to what it was. And there was something called the Lead Safe Home Fund, and that was $1 million a year, and they did cut that one all the way down to zero. And that was a really good program because what it did was if they found children who were getting poisoned, who had lead poisoning, that was the fund that allowed people to figure out, health departments to figure out where exactly that lead poisoning came from and abate it.
Yep.
And now that's gone. So instead, they did this puny little increase of the tax credit, but they also capped the tax credit at $3 million, which it used to be $7 million, and so they slashed that too. So even their claim, their excuse that the reason we're doing this is because those other programs were wasteful, and so we're going to give all the benefit to the landlords and let them do tax credits for when they fix their houses, except that they slashed the money to do that too. So
Great.
so in 2024, about 170,000 students tested for lead, and out of those, 4,500 had high levels of lead. 1,100 of them actually were lead poisoned. Their levels of lead in their blood reached the level where it would be called poisoning. And right now, we're third in the nation for having lead pipes and lead exposures. And the Republicans, I think, are trying for number one.
Yeah.
Because all the other states are continuing to abate their lead. But and lead is one of those contaminants that we've known about for centuries. Okay.
That's what took down the Roman Empire, for heaven's sake.
Took down the Roman Empire. And we know that there is a zero safe exposure. Like any additional lead causes health problems, and the more you put in, the bigger the health problems. So this whole idea that you're going to cut all the support for eliminating lead is, sorry, Republicans, it's just evil. All right, that's an evil thing that you're doing to Ohio's children.
Yeah.
And
Uncool, babies.
politicians
Uncool.
always like to say children are the hope for tomorrow, and so here we're going to poison them. All right.
Yeah.
So that sucks. But okay, so we got to counter that with a little bit of brightness. The online journal Electrek with a K, 814, global EV sales hit 10.7 million in 2025. Europe surges, U.S. stalls. And so they sold just in July, EV sales were 1.6 million, which is up 21% from July of 2024. For the year, electric vehicle sales are up 27%. So that's a big, healthy increase. Biggest jump, of course, was in China, which they had 6.5 million electric cars sold there. Pretty much the Chinese are going full electric, what they call BEVs, battery electric vehicles. Plug-in hybrid sales there actually dropped 15%. But there the government has a trade-in program. So if you have a gas car, an internal combustion car, and you trade it in for an electric car, the government will give you around about $3,000 US for doing that. In Europe, electric car sales are up 30%. Germany leads the way with 43% adoption, and UK has 32%. Italy, 40% increase in the sale of EVs in Italy. And so if you could convince the Italians of it, you're doing pretty well. But France, they actually dropped 11% because I don't know why. People in France do kind of like to be contrary, but there we go. There's some good news. And so our next story, though, takes us to South Carolina at the Savannah River site. And you may have also heard about this one. Seth Meyers actually talked about this one on his show. And that is that they discovered radioactive wasp nests.
Oh, dear.
Yes. They did a press release saying that there were 4 wasp nests, although I did see some reporting that said now they've found as many as 7. And they called them lightly contaminated, kind of like
Lightly.
just sprinkled with radioactivity.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they didn't give any information beyond that. And so people immediately are like, well, what does lightly mean?
Yeah.
Right.
One does immediately tend to wonder when you hear that word.
Yeah, is it like a sprinkle or a dash or a quarter teaspoon? What? And they also didn't say what radioisotopes they were contaminated with. And this is an extremely important point because what the sort of atoms, radioactive atoms, are in there can tell you where this contamination came from and what is leaking. Okay, so the Savannah River site is a place where they made nuclear weapons, and so it's contaminated with all sorts of things, plutonium, uranium, etc. And they have lots of these big tanks filled with liquid radioactive waste. And if some of those have started leaking, that is a big, major, terrible thing. We might have to start putting up signs saying, drive through this area with your windows closed and your air conditioning on recirc. Tom Clements of Savannah River Site Watch, basically says, he says in this article, they need to tell us all this other information before we can say whether it really is a threat to public health or not. So let's hope they get it. Next story, Science News, August 14th, 2025. Unprecedented climate shocks are changing the Great Lakes forever. And what's happening here at the Great Lakes is that temperature extremes, going from really hot to really cold and back and forth, that has doubled in the Great Lakes since 1990.
So we're pasteurizing them, essentially.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Heat waves and cold spells. El Nino is contributing to this because it seems to, the heating seems to be connected, when El Ninos are going on. And the scientists at University of Michigan say this is a big problem, and it actually threatens our $7 billion fishery because fish can escape gradual changes, like with the seasons as things get hotter and cooler, summer to winter. They're designed, they're evolved, they can handle that. But when it's sudden, when it happens like really fast, they can't always move to better climes in the lake in time, and they can die in large numbers. Fish eggs are especially vulnerable, and so they could not survive the pasteurization process.
Yep.
And it also, what's happening is this disrupts the natural stratifying and mixing cycles. Okay, so in the summertime, the water naturally stratifies. You get this layer of hot water on top, and then it's colder underneath. There's called a thermocline. And then in the spring and fall, when the sun's angle changes, that thermocline disappears, everything sort of mixes, puts nutrients back in the whole area. And then in the wintertime, of course, now you get ice covering it, and that also creates a cold layer on top, and then it gets warmer underneath. That's all going away. It's all being like somebody's just taken a big ladle and stirring all the lakes all the time, and that is very bad for the critters that have evolved to have natural heating and cooling cycles. So, not good. All right, our final story, and so this is a mix of fact and ridiculousness. Here comes the facts. We're talking about the wildfires in Canada, which we've been keeping track of the whole cycle. So far, 7.5 million hectares have burned in Canada. That is roughly the size of Colorado. They are still at 2.5 times average, which is improving. They were at 4 times average earlier in the season. 70 of those fires are out of control. 195 of them are somewhat controlled. So that's the factual part. And now here comes the ridiculous part. It's a story on August 14th and from AP, and it is, as Canada wildfires choke U.S. with smoke, Republicans demand action, but not on climate change. And what has happened is the Republican lawmakers from around the Great Lakes, both congressional and local and state, have sent a letter to Canada, a sternly worded letter to Canada, saying your wildfires are messing up our skies. They're hurting our tourism.
Who knew that smoke could drift like that?
Yeah.
Through the air.
Right. So they've sent this letter saying control your wildfires. You're messing up our vacations.
As opposed to sending help.
Right. Yeah. No,
Fighting
they're
them.
not going to send firefighters or anything like that. But these are Republican lawmakers from Iowa, New York, North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and several congressional members. Of course, the scientific reaction to this, Jennifer Francis of the Woodwell Climate Research Center in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, said Canada should be blaming the U.S. for these increased fires.
Kinda, yeah.
Because we're the ones that put the majority of that carbon in the air that's causing the global warming that the Republican lawmakers are ignoring. Wildfires started in April this year in Canada, which is the earliest they've ever started. 2023 was the worst fire season ever in Canada. This year's coming in at number 2 so far, 2025. And one of the things that happens, of course, is that global warming melts the permafrost under the taiga, the boreal forest that goes around the poles. And once the permafrost is gone, it dries out. And once it dries out, then it catches fire. And so I had to report the letter, the surly worded letter, together with the fire information because it really struck me. I mean, part of me has always assumed that these Republicans know, that they're evil. They know what they're doing. They believe, they see global warming. They see the scientific evidence, and they're just cynically using it to play their voters into voting for them anyway. But sending a letter like this suggests they really are that stupid.
There's
You know
no
what I
global
mean?
warming because the air conditioning in my car works fine.
Right. It's.
I'm not hot.
I mean, it could still be that they actually know better, and they're still this is an even more cynical ploy to show to play to their constituents who have been convinced that science isn't real, that carbon dioxide somehow doesn't hold more heat than other gases in the atmosphere. It could still be just a cynical ploy, but it could also be that they really are that ignorant. And if that's the case, given that they control the country pretty much.
What really worries me about humans is our remarkable capacity to believe what we want to believe,
That's true.
I think that kind of explains the Romans, the Mayans, all the fallen empires that kind of poisoned themselves to death or destroyed themselves in various environmentally related ways.
That's a good point, and it's a
Rapa Nui.
it's a very salient one. Now, we do know, though, that the majority of Americans accept global warming, believe in global warming, just as the majority of the people on the entire planet.
Mm-hmm.
And the numbers are 75 to 80% in all the polls. It's just that 20% somehow has the reins of power, and so you have to be less democratic in order to put this minority view as the official view, the view that's so official that Republicans are sending letters to the Canadian ambassador demanding that he stop these forest fires because it's, and so that was pretty much all I wanted to talk about this week. We've still got a minute or two if somebody wants
Canadians
to call in.
apparently do not understand that forest fires are bad.
Right. Has to be explained to them in a letter. And, Canada has been at level 5. In other words, all their resources fully committed to fighting fires since April. So that the Canadians are already doing everything they possibly can, Republicans. If you want fewer Canadian wildfires, you could support legislation that would block, carbon and reduce, global greenhouse gas emissions. But I don't know. Can they be taught? That's the question. But Robin Williams, I don't know if you saw Aladdin there, but he did this little thing at one point where he imitated a newsreel from the 50s where they were teaching chimpanzees to actually do tasks, and they were shocked because chimpanzees could learn. They thought humans were the only creatures that could do that back in the 50s, and so he had a phrase in there, they can be taught. And so the question is, can Republicans be taught? Can they be taught?
One wonders.
I don't know. I guess we're going to all find out the hard way. That's about it. Do you have, let's see, anything you want to add, Rebecca, or any ideas what you're going to do next week? Or
Wow, I don't know. I just had one, but I forgot about it.
Okay. Well,
Seconds later, I'm not having a good day.
If you folks have any suggestions for things,
I was
you'd like
thinking
to
about
do,
doing milkweed because
Oh.
there's a rumor going around on the internet that milkweed poisons spotted lanternflies. So that idea occurred to me.
Oh, that would be
Maybe.
nice.
Yeah.
Oh, and an update from the Ilantha wireworms eating my trees of heaven in my yard. They have just gone to town. They've literally
Good.
eaten about a third of the tree of heaven that's in my yard, and so
Good for them.
yeah. And so what I'm doing now is I'm actually putting, when I find them in a place on a little sapling where I want to mow the lawn, I actually cut that sapling off and put it on another tree of heaven at a different part that I want eaten. And so far they're obliging. So that's really
Yeah, I found I found patient 0 of the tree of stinks to high heaven in my epidemic in my neighborhood. Somebody has one in their in fact 2 people have them in their yards. One to the east of me, like a block, and one a block west on Verdun.
yeah.
So that is where they're spreading because this one yard can't afford to mow that often, and so they're getting all the little seedlings in there. And oddly enough, I'm seeing a lot of spotted lanternflies, but it's not around where I know the trees are.
Well, they'll get there.
Probably, yeah.
All right. Well, I hear the music. We've come to the end of the show. Just a reminder, if you want to comment, send an email to joe@joedemare for agreenfuture.org or a text to 419-973-5841. Thanks so much for listening. This is Joe DeMare.
And Rebecca Wood.
We are signing off.
I don't want no oil, a spoil in my shoreline. I like fish much better than crud. I like birds and things a creeping and crawling. Won't trade no more oil for blood. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. I don't want them nukes run by them kooks who think radioactivity is fun. No more 3-headed frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that nuclear power's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. No nukes!